You may remember last year I actually bought a $5,000 winter car. It was a 180,000 mile Mini Cooper that actually served me really well. A very fun car, and it was surprisingly reliable. We actually raffled off that Mini to a listener on our podcast who now has it and loves it. What I wanted for my winter car was a Mitsubishi Evo 10. I actually really like those cars. However, I also really wanted a hatchback. And I didn't want to spend $20,000, $25,000. I had about 10 grand to spend, maybe 10.5. Luckily, there's a solution. For the year 2010, Mitsubishi made the Mitsubishi Lancer Ralliart, which is a step down from the Evo 10, and they made it in the Sportback wagon. The interior in the Mini was actually much nicer to look at. It's quirky, it's kind of ridiculous, but it is kind of fun to work with. This Lancer, however, is far more usable. You'd be amazed at how much space is in the back. Honestly, we have almost as much space in this car as we do in our Cayenne. Now, the interior in here is just not very nice. It's actually slightly improved now that I put a different stereo in here that is a little bit more modern. Now there was nowhere to go but up. You can see the original stereo is pretty terrible. This one at least is Bluetooth and does normal things. Plus, I gained a handy shelf. Things I like about this car compared to the Mini, well, the seats are significantly better. These Recaros are actually some of the best stock seats that have been in cars. I've always loved them. However, because this is the Lancer, just like the Evo, this wheel will tilt but doesn't telescope, so I can't quite get the right body position for the seat. So the seating position isn't perfect, but the seats themselves are amazing. This is a 3,700-pound car, which makes it about 1,000 pounds heavier than the Mini. It almost feels like a bus compared to the other things I'm used to driving. I can take my long 188 skis and I can put them in from the back and not even get to the front seats. I've taken this car skiing with the whole family. Because there were only 6 of these cars for sale when I started shopping, I looked nationwide and had to buy one sight unseen. Now, I'd never done that. I'm not a huge fan of the idea. I found this Ralliart in the dead center of Wisconsin, where even the transport trucks don't really know where it is. I asked a lot of very specific questions and got a lot of good photos and help from them, and I appreciate that. However, there are a couple things that they clearly didn't know weren't stock on this car. One is the exhaust, which sounds good when the car is actually just sitting and idling, but the minute you put your foot in it, it's too much. The other one is the sunroof. This car doesn't come with a sunroof. All of the photos were taken in such a way that there was never a shot straight down or straight up at the roof, because why would there be? Because they didn't think it was interesting that it had a sunroof. It arrives, it's got a sunroof. That means this is an aftermarket sunroof. Now, it seems to be put in pretty well, kind of a nice little addition, but I gotta be honest with you, I bought this as my inexpensive winter car. It's gonna have to survive parked outdoors in a Utah winter. I'm praying this doesn't leak. This car's done a good job of surviving extreme cold as well. I've started it up many mornings at -15, and it's actually done a good job. Now, it doesn't like it. It doesn't snap to real quickly, but until everything warms up, the transmission is incredibly sluggish. So in the same way that the WRX is a step down from the STI, the Ralliart is a step down from the Evo. So it's not quite all the bells and whistles, but it is similar. Now, one of the things I like the most about the Evo 10, where the place I actually even like it more than the STI, is the handling. Now, part of the reason for that is it has a lot of trick diffs and it pushes the power to specific wheels. What you get with the Ralliart is, again, that about 250 horsepower engine, but you also don't get the smart diffs that can push to a specific wheel. It's actually tech-wise much more similar to the Evo 9. And it isn't quite as tight in a corner. However, it still does a really good job in cornering. As long as you keep your foot in it, you'd be surprised by how much you can get out of it. I actually look forward to taking it to the track. Our local track does something they call Wintercross, where you get to get on the track and just do it one lap at a time like a big autocross course with whatever the conditions happen to be. No idea what to expect here other than they are requiring us to go windows down. It's 22 degrees outside. I am windows down on a racetrack on Michelin X Ice 3 full winter tires. Sport mode, traction control is off because, oh look, snow! Hard to stay on the line. I had to put sunglasses on because the sun is actually coming up. It's a bluebird sky day, which normally is great for skiing. In this case, let's just get on a racetrack. Let's just try that, shall we? This has the same 2-liter engine that you find in the Evolution. There it's making almost 300 horsepower and pound-feet of torque. Here it's tuned down. It comes with about 240 horsepower. Now, the person that owned this car before me put on an aftermarket exhaust. That is awful. The upside is they gained a little bit in the power. This is a little bit more urgent when it gets on boost, but this car or the Evo 10, before it's on boost in first gear, it just languishes. This car only comes with Mitsubishi's SST, that is their dual clutch transmission. Talk about a new experience. I actually wanted a dual clutch, I'd never owned one. This one is okay. Keep in mind, this is technology from about 2005, 2008 in this car. It's surprising to me that Mitsubishi, of all people, a tiny little company like that, even had a dedicated dual clutch transmission, but here it is. You can't get this Ralliart Sportback in the stick shift. It's not possible. Now, that 5-speed GSR is a little easier to manhandle and a little more reliable, especially if you want to throw a lot of power at this car. However, you do want a 6th gear. This car has it and the stick shift does not. This gearbox is actually a mixed bag. That makes it no different than any other dual clutch from the early 2000s. Sometimes it's fantastic, but when it tries to actually act like a normal automatic is where it really stumbles. If you put it into the manual mode, if you put it into sport, where it is the most aggressive, it's trying to shift the fastest, and you're doing it yourself with these paddles, then it's surprisingly good. In fact, better than I would expect this car to be. The problem is when you put it over into standard and you pull it back into normal and you say, hey, I'd like you to act like an automatic, it acts like somebody who almost understands how to drive a manual. It stumbles a bit, the clutch engagement is a bit off, it every now and then is revving a little too low or a little too high for its shifting. It's thoughtful and could be described as getting better, but just not great. It's best at what I like to do, which is to put it into manual, to put it into sport, and to drive it myself. This is the reason I got a dual clutch. I thought it'd be interesting to actually have one and experience on a daily basis what it's like to work with the paddles. Not that that's hard by any means, but I'm used to having manual transmissions. My last 4 cars have been manuals. I thought, all right, let's do something different. I wish the paddles weren't on the column. Paul prefers that. I'd much rather have them with the wheel. I don't like scrambling around the wheel trying to figure out where the paddle is. With winter tires on it, it just powers through everything. I've even got a snow setting down here. I can change it to say snow. Tarmac, gravel, and snow. We're claiming a little bit of our rally roots. I like this gearbox, but I'm looking at it cautiously because apparently when they die, they recommend you just replace the whole thing and it costs about 10 grand. As a result, when I bought it, I instantly got it serviced. It requires pretty much the most expensive liquid I've ever come across. The transmission fluid is $200 a gallon, and it takes 2 gallons to service this car. It seemed like a small price to pay on the off chance that otherwise the transmission might go. This car only cost me $10,500, so I'm not exactly going to make a $10,000 transmission swap. So needless to say, I hope that the transmission just keeps working. I hope this car is great for a long time. I plan to keep it for a few years. Already I'm much preferring the all-wheel drive demeanor of this to the front-wheel drive of the Mini. Hopefully this car will run well for a long time. Obviously I'll keep you informed about that. If you have any questions about it, let us know in the comments and I'll try to get them answered for you. We will give more regular updates on the podcast as well. Remember, that's every Tuesday and Friday. Until then, I'll be bouncing around in the snow in this car and waiting until I can buy a quieter exhaust.
Here at Everyday Driver, we're one of the longest running car shows on the web.
We are.
If you've been watching us since 2007, or you just discovered us last week, we are an independent channel and still producing original content.
Our TV show airs on the Motor Trend Network, but if you don't have cable, all the episodes can be streamed on Amazon Prime.
We host a top 10 automotive podcast called The Car Debate, with about 400 episodes and new ones airing every Tuesday and Friday. So if you've got a question or need a car, our podcast can help you.
Here on YouTube, the Fast Blasts are still here. They're going to become a little simpler, more like a video podcast, actually, mixed with a new car review.
We'll still make well-produced single car reviews of enthusiast cars, plus we're adding Chance doing classics, Nate doing motorcycles, and we're even doing the occasional mountain bike review.
And if that's not enough, we do have 5 feature films, including one-of-a-kind generational comparisons of the Corvette, the 911, and the M3.
Plus we host meetups, track days, and even a trip to the ring and spa.
We do all of that. So thanks for watching, listening, sharing. There's lots more to come.